Hey, welcome to KUAM's Decision 2014. I'm Jess Lujan, your host with the Candidate Buzz. I'd like to introduce the producer of my show, Ken JC Conception, on the boards there.
Good morning, Guam.
My studio guest this morning is none other than Republican candidate for the delegate to Washington, Margaret Metcalfe. Good morning, Margaret. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Jesse. I'm doing wonderful.
Great,
Good
great,
morning.
great. I see you're getting a little tanner nowadays, so that means you're out there pressing the flesh, waving and all that. That needs to be done. But hey, good. Thank you again, and welcome to the show. Go ahead and tell the people of Guam who you are, what side of the battle you're on, and how important it is for them to come out this Saturday.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks, for listening. My name is Margaret McDonald Glover Metcalfe, and as Jesse knows, our roots go back very deep here in the island of Guam. My grandmother, Dolores Kitagua Mariano, lived in Agana growing up, and we have probably been here since we've been into the genealogy role. Our roots go back almost 4,000 years, which is interesting. When he mentions that I'm getting tanner, that is correct. Even growing up out here, we were never allowed to sit out and just soak in the sun. We always wore long t-shirts over our bathing suits and things like that. But my mother, for those of you who remember her, was Elizabeth, they called her Pumpkin, McDonald Glover, and she was a school teacher here since before the war. And after the war, returned to teaching to a lot of the areas in Tamuning and Barragata and Ordot and places like that. I know I met a lot of people along the way that have parents who have been her students, and I have pictures of all of them. My grandfather arrived here in 1898. He was one of the first Marines from Boston, Massachusetts. He wrote home to his family saying that he would not be returning, that he had found paradise. And I think all of us probably have enjoyed some of that paradise in our memories. He and Dolores had 11 children. Following the war, only 5 remained. And the youngest was my Auntie Pepping, who is still alive and living in California. And then my Uncle Charles, who is from Agana Heights. His son Paul is our current mayor. And Auntie Lula, his wife, is our current matriarch. She's the eldest that is still with us. Then we had my Uncle Jim McDonald, who was from Barragata. My mother, Pumpkin, where we grew up in Mighty. And the last was my Auntie Benny, who all of you know as Paul Calvo's mother, Veronica Calvo. So as far as growing up on Guam, so that those of you who don't know me realize, and I went to Weddingale Elementary School, went on to graduate from San Vicente, and I'm class of 66 from the academy. I left Guam in 67 as Miss Guam, worked for a year under Madeline and my auntie, Chillingbamba, and then went on to college to get degrees in accounting and economics. Met my husband, brought my boys back here, raised them in Tamuning. My husband worked for Bank of America, and I worked for Lee Holmes at Guam Cable TV. We had been back and forth since then quite a few times. When the Archbishop asked us to open a business at the cathedral, we opened Ave Maria Book Center. My family has been blessed. Not that we haven't encountered hardships along the way, but we are truly blessed. And approximately 22 years ago, my husband and I elected to leave our communities a better place and started serving the Catholic communities throughout the U.S. and the Pacific Rim. We purchased Ave Maria Community Book Center, which was started originally by the Marinas Order, who teach at Chaminade in Hawaii, and brought that shop, a small shop, sample of it here to Guam, so that we could service the Catholic community here.
Margaret, thank you very much for that introduction. But let me ask you again, because you were saying early on in your career, you worked for the incumbent. Actually, she wasn't the delegate then, but
Yes, that's
you worked
correct.
for her. You are now challenging the same person that you used to work for.
That's true.
What is your platform, your political platform?
My stance is that we do need true, assertive representation. We need to take a new energy to this situation and re-educate our folks on the mainland. Approximately 7 years ago, I viewed a film, a small clip on YouTube of our current representative being interviewed by Colbert. And I expected to see something funny, and I was actually incensed by it. Thought about it many, many times, wondered why people perceive us as a military base out in the middle of the Pacific and not U.S. I've had people say to me when I'm traveling out here, could you please bring me some of your currency? I collect foreign currency. Well, the general populace, it's not that they're ignorant, it's just that they're misinformed or ill-informed. And we do have a job. I picked this up when I was working with Madeline and my Auntie Chilling. And that is that as an ambassador to our island, it doesn't stop. You always extol our virtues, of which we have many, and make sure people realize just how important we are to America and to America's way of life.
Mm-hmm. Now I understand the new energy bringing to the issues that haven't been resolved, but it's also been said, and it always has been a political or a campaign issue in the sense that, well, Washington works like this, and you know how Washington works. Washington works like this. It's the old boy school, basically the old boy network, and seniority plays a big key role in this whole thing. So that means then that when you get in there, of course, you rise in the ranks, you go through the regimen of being here versus there, and then you work up to the senior position. We have a congresswoman who's in senior position at this point. She says that seniority, the context that we make is very important. Understand the energy, but does that trump seniority?
Well, I think in this case, it may. I have tremendous respect for Madeline and for our Congresswoman, and the fact that she was also our first American woman from Guam to represent us. But when we don't carry a vote, seniority plays a real hard second. And we have to start pushing for more representation. We also have to start re-educating the folks that we're working with on our own committees, because some of the mandates that have come down the line just over the last 12 years alone are things that you wonder, were we being held up at the table? Just as recent as August 1st, for instance, we had the U.S. sign a treaty regarding the redefining of our ocean boundaries between Guam and the Federated States of Micronesia. Well, the only party at this transaction that lost any rights was Guam. And the only party that had no representation was Guam. How can you represent a people if you're not present in the room when these decisions are happening? We're talking our water rights. We're talking long-term income.
Now, how do you, because again, should the people decide to elect Margaret Metcalfe to again to the congressional office, the delegate's office, you would go in there again having no vote. The Republicans might retain the House, looking like they're going to. They might also take the Senate. Okay?
That's correct.
But you'll still have the executive branch that will be Democrat. Okay, so you probably if the Republicans control both houses, You might have an opportunity to sit in a committee.
Mm-hmm.
You might also even chair a committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are all the mights and all that. But you would go in again still, you have no vote, might get a committee vote, but really no vote on the floor. So bartering will not be something that will come to Delegate Metcalfe's office and says, can you support this and that? You know, I got pork barrel here, and I'll give you a little bit of barrel, a little bit of pork, but it's not going to happen. Okay, so how do you go about that? Because again, when negotiations are being done, when negotiations or things are even being conceived at this point, and they're going to affect Guam, you know, we are at their beck and call, basically, in the sense that if they want to inform us, they might. If they don't have to, because of who we are and what we are. We're not at the table. How would you go about that? Again, going in that our political status is still this status quo. So what would Margaret do to change that, going in with the same tools that Madeline has and previous delegates have had?
Well, Jesse, that is multi-pronged. First of all, I feel that we need to educate the folks that we're talking to over there as to our importance and how much we do bring to the table. But secondly, there are more Chamorros and Guamanians living on the mainland than living here on island. And my take on this has been, for the last few years, trying to reach these individuals throughout the states, especially the West Coast and the East Coast, because our folks tend to sort of go to the water lines, and energize them to be active in reporting to their local congressmen and senators on our behalf, because we don't carry a vote, they do. Any strength they can bring to the table is going to ensure lives that are better for all of us on the island. And believe me, just like in the state of Arizona, where McCain, who was head of the committee on which our congressman sits on for years, there are over 600 families in Scottsdale alone that are Chamorro and Guamanian, and they get together every year. And if we can get them to contact his office and press on our behalf, then all of a sudden he realizes that yes, the Chamorros, the Guamanians have a vote and can affect his reelection. Mm-hmm. Unless you can affect their reelection process, you're correct. We become insignificant in their eyes. But the core group in Washington, Jesse, and our military leaders have no doubt how vital we are. And we do have negotiating abilities. We just have to know it. They need to be reappraised of it, and we need to get down to business.
Okay. Now let's go to the issues that haven't been resolved ever since. Okay?
Yes.
Now, recently, again, I mean, it looks like we've tried every which way but loose. You know, in trying to get this. Even as of recent, we've identified, the delegate identified section 30 monies, basically paying for it by ourselves, and doing that. Now, it would have been a no-brainer for them to say, you want to pay what was promised to you by yourselves, no problem. But of course they did not allow that to happen. What approach would you take? Or would you, as a journalist about a little over a month ago had stated, they said, let's give it up. Let's give up the war reparations. You know, shame on us, basically. We've had millions of dollars and grants given to Guam and all that, and you know, it's just something we're kind of ungrateful at this point. Give it up. It's not a worthy fight anymore at this point. What does Margaret think about that argument, and what approach would you take differently than other delegates had not pursued yet?
Well, Jesse, that's a very deep question for me, because we have waited so many years, 70 years, for our people to be recognized and to be considered as a viable asset to America. Our rights were taken away after the war. We could not go after Japan for any of these reparations, and the Americans took that spot. We did have money at one time, as everyone knows, sitting on the table, and our current representative chose to walk away from it because it didn't carry the votes that it would have carried if it went to the people she had hoped the funds would go to. For our current representative, and it is a situation where it's a political issue that she needs to address or has tried to address. For me, it's a personal issue. My family survived the war. Of 11 children, my mother's family had 5 when the island was liberated. And you can well imagine the atrocities that were placed on my family, being fair-skinned, having the last name McDonald, and flying an American flag in front of their house in Agana. Their home became the officers' headquarters in Agana. Right where you see those steps going up the hill on O'Brien Drive, right below Government House, those 72 steps went directly to my grandfather's front door. So, for me, it's personal. And even if there's only one Manumko left, don't we owe that person the dignity of knowing how special they were? And for us to walk away from this would be sinful.
Okay, let me ask you a few other questions, and we can limit to 1 minute so we can get as many questions here as that. So, your feeling on, again, because of our status, some of our federal issues, of course, the mandates are bestowed upon us that again does not really allow us or really hinders our economic prosperity. Okay, the Jones Act, and the Jones Act, all inclusive, not just in the shipping lines but also in airlines. Your take on that, and I've asked the senators again, what would you do to pressure the delegate, again, to make sure that we get an exemption for... and you're the delegate.
That's true. Okay. That's true. Well, just as early of March of this year, the folks in Hawaii, who also suffer under the Jones Act, the folks of Hawaii got together and held what they were hoping to be a press conference. They wanted to include Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii, and Guam. And at the time, the only party that was unable to communicate with them during the press conference was Guam, due to malfunctions with technical. This is what was actually brought up. Letters were written by our Democratic senators to Madeline asking for her assistance at that time. What is happening is the Jones Act is an old, almost 100-year-old bill, and at this point in time is only detrimental to our growth and economy here in Guam. The problem we face is that there are 2 elements that keep the Jones Act there. One is that it was tied to the unions, and this is something everyone has looked at as a political, no-no. You don't touch anything. The second thing is that it is financially beneficial to those people that do support it, in that they receive benefits and campaign contributions from those shipping lines that are involved in the Jones Act. They're out of 38,000 ships, dear folks, out of 38,000 ships that qualify to go across our oceans and transfer bulk product, 90 of them fall in the Jones Act, 90 of them. And at this point in time, the only firm coming to Guam, I believe, is Matson. Matson is the number 3rd contributor to our dear delegates' campaign chest. So, where is the incentive? Where is the incentive to answer our senators' letters to support their issues on trying to reform our Jones Act?
Well, thank you. How about the situation, of course, military buildup? Military buildup, this conversation has been ongoing since at least when I was in the legislature, 2006, maybe even a little before then. But here we have now, that number has dwindled from 8,000, 10,000 now to 4,000 or 5,000. The first choice of the firing range was Pagat, of course. That's still not off the table. Now the choice is the Rutinian. Retidian folks, some of the families, or a representative of one of the families had recently called the show and they said, wait a minute, we weren't compensated. My grandfather had not received the money or was given the money but never received the money. That being said, if the money's never received, I would assume at this point that it's in a trust account bearing interest at this point. I don't know. And one of the family members who was given a check by the federal government said went to cash the check only to find out that it was non-sufficient funds. Okay, you used to be a banker. You know how all that. You know
that's
how,
not where you want to be.
Yeah, you know how all that works. So even before you're saying, you know, this issue, I think that has to be resolved. That issue has to be resolved, whether or not, again, all those families have been justly compensated. If not, then, you know, our Constitution does not dictate a taking, basically, without just compensation.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, what would you do to ensure that these families are, or maybe was already justly compensated based on the paperwork that we see? Because, I mean, they've been toiled pretty much. I mean, a delegate will say one thing and the very next day it's contrary to what was said to them or assured to them at this point. That is not what is needed at this point. That again, you know, as much as people, again, want to support a buildup, when you have actions such as that, you're saying, well, what is being kept from me? When your delegate is really not really upfront with you at this point. So what would you do? Again, your thoughts on the military buildup, the downsizing of that, and again, the location of choice for them at this point for the shooting range.
Well, Jesse, I'd like to make it perfectly clear that I am for the buildup. I am very much in favor of the idea that we have done it, we've scaled down, and that we can do it in a more methodical way without bringing hardship to our infrastructure and to the folks here. I do think that some of these issues regarding the lands up in Retidian and down on the coast there, that because I have family that also have property up there, and this is very major on their minds,
Sure.
that this is something that has to be revisited. And we need to be able to carry some clout when we talk about these things. I don't know if you are aware or not, but last night it was announced that I am now the Guam's National Republican Chairwoman. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm looking at the fact that we do have a Republican House. There is a strong chance we will have a Republican Senate. There's a very strong chance we will have our Republican legislature here, as well as a Republican gubernatorial team. That trumps years of sitting at a table with no vote, because you're on the same side, you can talk, there's more openness. I think that we need to bring resolution to these families, because although I am for the buildup, I am not for hurting our people or inconveniencing them. They deserve to be recognized and compensated like anyone else the U.S. government works with. They've taken us lightly. They have to turn that around.
Now, of course, our political status here, okay? And I think it's obvious what your political status would probably of choice would be. But how, again, based on the fact that going in there with the power or lack thereof, going in a delegate, would you push? I know the Department of Interior had promised, I think, some seed money for an educational campaign. I've heard that number from 100,000 to 300,000, whatever it may be at this point, to move towards. What are your thoughts on moving towards, again, Guam deciding on its political self-determination? And again, if you're in favor of it, when do you think we should have this?
Well, Jesse, right now, I think my job should be concentrating on the life and death issues. I think we should be worrying about Pacific solutions to our medical problems. and the livelihood of our people, the quality of life of our people here on Guam. Our Manamco, our veterans, those folks that have Medicare and have to travel so far to be able to take advantage of that. These are issues. The compact is destroying our culture, our economy, our way of life. And these are issues that are immediate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
These are issues that are immediate. Not that our stature or the position we take for the future is not important. We need to address our life and death issues first, get our house in order, carry some clout, and then move forward and try to make some conscientious, informed decisions. I am very, very enlightened by the young people I've met, both at GCC and UOG and around the island as we've met in the different rallies. These people are on top of things, much more so than when we were younger. And I have faith that the educational process is not going to be as difficult in that regard as taking care of these other issues.
You mentioned, of course, life and death issues and our compact and the impact of that compact here to
Most definitely.
to Guam. What would you do? I mean, this is ink is already to paper, the compact, and again, we weren't a part of we weren't a part of this negotiating team. And so, what would you do to be able to get us the fair reimbursements for the compact immigrants? Likewise, the deportation of criminal migrants, okay, and hospital reimbursement for compact migrants, again, who use our hospitals. You said life and death issues, these are issues that are facing us on a daily basis. So they may not be overwhelmingly be a cause, but however that number may be, it's a cause according to all indications that we haven't been fully reimbursed for.
That is correct. And if you look at the compact itself, which I have read, these are items that were addressed and never. It's just like our immigration laws. They're there, but not monitored and not policed and not enforced. And that's what happened with our compact. The details of the compact were never enforced, and we have been made to suffer for that. Guam is a melting pot and always has been. And this is a place where people feel they can come and make an attempt at reaching the American dream. And what makes us even more valuable is that we are such an open and welcoming people. So many of these folks that have come across our borders are now members of our families, our extended families. So there are a lot of important things that we need to address in that regard. Those folks that choose, because this is a choice, to hurt us in different ways by becoming criminals and filling up our prisons should be looked at, and those more serious ones should be sent back to their islands. These island nations are receiving money from the compact. They have the money to take care of these individuals. We are not here to become a caregiving nation. And at this point in time, just to give you an idea, we have the U.S. government and our government working at trying to limit the number of people coming in a buildup and have open borders for an untold amount of people coming across the borders. Where is the logic behind that? Now, also, the compact is reviewed every so many years. When it was reviewed in 2003, I believe, and 2011, we had over 40 congressmen and senators in attendance. We had representatives from Saipan, American Samoa, Hawaii. No representative from Guam at either review. There are only changes when there are reviews. And if you're not there to fight for those changes, they don't happen.
That's right. Real quick, and then we'll go to the closing.
I'm getting too hot and heavy. Don't get me started, Jesse.
Statement here. Recently, I think it was going on 2 weeks now, the amicus brief that was filed, of course, we've all have known this, but finally there's ink to paper, and the President of the United States put ink to paper and basically solidified that our citizenship basically was granted to us through the Congress, and Congress can take it away. So that being said, again, it's not a guarantee. So it solidified our second class status of citizenship. Again, going in, knowing that, raising your hand with everybody else over there for the next Congress, that amongst all of you, you may have same titles and maybe same pay, but you are very different. The territories, the delegates from their territories are very different because you're not quite up to them. You are a second class U.S. citizen.
Isn't that interesting? Well, as you probably already know, I totally disagree with that feeling. However, our dear president chose, again, the word chose, to make this determination. And I think that a lot of this is, again, misinformation, where our people in Washington don't know about how vital we are. I mean, they can put their head on the pillow at night and sleep comfortably because Guam is here and our people are as strong and resilient as they are. However, we need to make sure that this voice is carried out not only to the folks in Washington, but to the folks around the United States, because they will back us. We are American citizens, and at this point in time, we are being disenfranchised and being put down the ladder as second-class citizens, which is not appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Again, 1 minute, please tell the people of Guam, again, who you are, what side of the battle you're on, and probably what would be the first thing you do when you get in there.
I think the first thing I'd like to tell everyone is that I am honored to be here, and I thank all of my family and my friends and my newfound friends in the villages for their support and their hard work. This is not an easy process. I am up against an icon, as I have been told on numerous occasions, and but we have given our representative 12 years, and it's time to move forward. God only puts us on this earth for a few minutes, and each of these minutes is a gift. What we do with this time is our gift to Him. We need to make each moment count. You need to choose during this election process what can make our lives better. And if we want to refer back to what has happened over the last 12 years, then that's a choice. And we're each entitled to that.
Okay. Again, you're, what side of the battle are you on?
I am a Republican. I am number one. People say, what number? I am number one. I'm running for our congressional representative in Washington. And if you do choose to send me as your delegate, I pledge to challenge every decision that is made by our U.S. Congress and by our military in Washington, and understand those decisions and bring them back to you.
Margaret, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and the best of
Thank
luck
you.
here. Of course, we have the primary here on Saturday, and then we move on to the general election. And,
That's correct.
You'll move on to the general election as well. So, anyway, that being said, you can actually we're live right now, but you can hear a broadcast tonight on at 7:30 on local channel 2. Likewise, it'll be on our YouTube channel, KUAM YouTube channel, about 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning as well. It'll be highlighted tonight on KUAM Prime Time, and likewise a rebroadcast tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. on KUAM TV8. It's looking like we're going to be heading to the gubernatorial teams now starting tomorrow. I think we have coming in here the Cabo Tenorio team this week. Of course, this is our last week because we're on to the primary this Saturday morning, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Of course, so get out and vote. I mean, if you haven't already registered, too bad for you. But please, if you're registered, we urge you again, get out and vote. This is your right to vote. Okay. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning with the gubernatorial team of Cabo Tenorio. Let's goodbye for now.